Thank you very much, everybody that's attending. Please direct your questions to the Q&A. We've got quite a lot of ground to cover this evening. Quite a few things have happened, and there is quite a bit of things and reactions that we need to consider from our point of view as investors. And there's a lot of stuff that's starting to happen from the liquidators' side as well. I think briefly, I'll just summarize where we are. The original court case to declare this scheme as a blanket illegal business practice, Ponzi scheme in brackets, has still not been decided. Anyway, so the original court case that was still pending for quite some time now, that has still not been decided. There's been a request for oral evidence, which needs to be submitted. Possibly Solicitor Ian Ellis can just fill us in on that situation at the moment, and what things we can consider from our side that we need to do as investors. The other thing that I also want to say is that on the 31st of August, the liquidators went for a provisional order, which is an order, and it is split into if it is an illegal business scheme and if it isn't an illegal business scheme. So the order sort of takes into cognizance what the outcome of the previous court case will be. There is a question whether this is legal because the other matter has not been decided, but that has not been challenged yet. But there is a potential legal challenge that can be put against that order because it is an interim order and it's trying to cover two bases at the moment. So there's a lot of stuff from our side that needs to be covered on the legal side, and I'm trusting that Solicitor Ian Ellis and Advocate Hendrik van Staden would like to speak to that. I'm going to, Advocate Hendrik van Staden has asked to really limit his time this evening. He is suffering with a bug at the moment, and I'm really surprised he's actually here at the moment. So I think I'll just give him the table and then he can talk to that interim order for us, and then we can possibly excuse him after that. Advocate van Staden, would you like to take that from there, or would you like to direct that question to Solicitor Ian Ellis?
Good evening, Chris. As I said, I'm not at the best of health currently, but I will just start with introduction to that order. Basically, it's an interim order with a return date, meaning that people who are interested in opposing it do have certain time by which they can deliver their comment. And then also what is very interesting is that the liquidators are making 3 different classes of investors in MTI, being the first class is people who only deposited or invested funds into MTI, but did not withdraw any funds. They are the ones that, according to the order, will get priority with regards to prepayment. Then there's a class 2 investors, and that is people who actually deposited money and withdrew. And if the interpretation of that order is correct, it means that I would request that people who fall in this category do repay the funds that they withdrew before they are able to put in a claim against the estate. And then you get a class 3 people, who are people who, according to the liquidators, went out to defraud the scheme, and are only people who made very big profits in the liquidation of MTI. So it will be interesting to see if there's going to be any opposition to this interim court case or the interim order. And it's interesting to see the way that the liquidators are going when they are taking into account the value of the rand and of the specific Bitcoin on the date it was deposited, as well as the date that it was withdrawn. It still leaves a lot of questions, and people are already starting to raise the concern, but what about people that withdrew their funds and redeposited after Attorney Ulrich Roux came on YouTube and told everyone that everything is above board. So, Ian, I'm sure you will be able to just continue with it. Chris and listeners, I apologize that I'm not going to be a part of the rest of the Zoom. I am feeling a bit indisposed. Thank you, Chris, and I hope that can at least set a scene.
Thank you very much, Advocate Hendrik. Ian, would you like to take it from there for us?
Thanks, Chris. Hendrik has basically covered the essential, if one could say, legal aspect of what the implications have. Now, what it's basically going to do in terms of that order, where people have to decide whether they're going to challenge the enforceability and the continuation of the order, is very simply what it now does is it creates a hybrid group beforehand, and this was at the instance, and this is where things have become more complicated, and if I could put it in a layman's terms, where there was first a group of what was called investors, and those investors were people who very simply put money, invested in the MTI Bitcoin scheme, and that's how they continued, and they continued to operate, withdrawing, redepositing, investing, clearing it out, and that's what actually has now changed and developed something different. And this development has now been the instance of additional classes. And these additional classes that became then from investors to become net winners and net losers. And on net winners, it was those who made money. Net losers are those who lost money. They invested, didn't get anything out, or those who invested and made a profit. Now you can see that the liquidators are creating a new class. And that is basically the hybrid class of those who put in, withdrew money, and now they must pay the money back, and then they can claim. Now, that's one of the main issues that's actually under question in the main court application, are these transactions of people, of what is a valid transaction, what's a void, and what was an invalid transaction, and to have certain transactions and investments and payouts declared unlawful for repayment purposes. What it is clearly this order has done is it's bypassed all of that and now said, well, this is now we can determine it, and now there's also going to be an offshoot of summonses against people who they believe have made profits, and then they're not going to deal with the issue of those other two classes just yet. So it's now, let's collect. Now it's going to be more of a collect first and then pay out later. But in the meantime, submit your claims to see if they qualify. So it once again creates this this muddied water of the investment, and that's where we're now sitting at, and that's now what's subject to challenge at the court in terms of this order. Because the problem that now could potentially happen is now you can have two conflicting orders, and that is if the main application is dismissed, for instance, but the provisional application isn't challenged and goes through, then they're still getting the relief. Otherwise, one could in one fell swoop they're losing, another, and on the other hand they're winning. So this is where the problem, in actual fact, now arises, and this is where the contentious part comes with this new order. It's basically being used as a safety net. So if the liquidators per se lose, they can still win if this doesn't go through. If nobody challenges this. And the problem that's coming with this is that there's more money having to be expended challenging an order like this. And that's where it makes it difficult for the investors. So yes, now even if you're an investor, you could submit your claims, but now they're going to make the determination of what you withdrew, pay that back, and then they'll see about paying you back with your own money, which in its own right is also, it's becoming more of a deterrent for people to actually invest more than anything else. So these need to be looked at and need to be viewed as to how challenges in actual fact going to take place, Chris.
Okay, so am I correct in saying that just as a general course of action for us as a class action or as a group of people getting together as investors, the best way forward for us would be to collect a group, put together group funding, and then to set up a proper challenge to this whole situation, to either challenge the legality or challenge the legality of this interim order, and then to also challenge the process and simplify it and ask for an order which simplifies this whole process and brings it to something which is more realistic and that's not going to have such a massive impact, but keeping the whole thing fair. Is there an opportunity? Let us assume, is there an opportunity if we raise these funds that we can take these guys on these principles?
Yes, in fact, it actually goes even further than that, Chris. Is that, yeah, if we can challenge this, then in essence, this order, this application, then in a way needs to be joined or consolidated into the main application, because a lot of the relief is an overlap relief.
Okay. So what you're saying is we can challenge this order and then bring that back to the pending judgment to join the two as well, and then there isn't this juggling thing that these liquidators are trying to do at the moment.
Absolutely.
Am I correct? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct in my understanding. Okay. Now I want to just stop there for 1 minute because this is reasonably technical stuff. And I just want to see, is there anything on the Q&As at the moment that directly addresses this? I'll just, while you guys are looking at the Q&A, I'm going to ask you, Yolanda and Lucille, just to see if there's anything there that we can answer on this. My suggestion is going to be within the next 2 to 3 days, because we'll need time to prepare papers. I am going to ask, and this is relevant for everybody who is an innocent investor. This is very relevant for those people that have withdrawn and put money back in. Very, very relevant, because otherwise, if this order is left, you can end up in a situation where you might have put in 12 Bitcoin, withdrawn 6 Bitcoin and put them back in. And then you can be challenged that you might have to put in 5 Bitcoin before they pay out 3 Bitcoins worth of money for you, because that's the type of situation we've got at the moment. Am I correct here?
Spot on.
Okay.
Spot on.
So this has to be challenged. If we don't challenge this, then that scenario exists, and you might still be a net loser, but you're going to be an even bigger net loser, because they, according to this order, can actually come and liquidate you for the 3 Bitcoin you received while you lost 7 Bitcoin. Am I correct?
Correct. In fact, I can actually take it up in terms of what this order creates a possibility of. Is that, say you invested 4 Bitcoin, but you invested them at, say, 100 Rand. You pulled out 1 Bitcoin, but you pulled it out at 500 Rand for that Bitcoin. Is because of the growth, you've got to pay back the 500, and then you can have your Bitcoin back at the original value when you bought it. And that's where it might actually be going on that calculation.
Okay. All right. So it really is very necessary for everybody to consider this, and to the best possible success we can have is to unilaterally challenge this order. Honestly, really, really, really important. Yolanda, are there any questions that have come up there that people want to ask specifically at the moment?
So one of the questions and answers is that we have been sending, as we have received the estimate claim value from the liquidators, we have sent that to the clients to say, do you agree with the value or not? So I've been asked, what is the implications of that then?
Well, at this stage of the game, the net losers, there's no, we have had no correspondence that has been negated. So on the net losers side, that seems to be intact at this stage. So I would I would say that we can specifically address that. Ian, do you want to speak to that? Sorry, can't hear you, Ian. Sound.
Apologies. Let me put it as simply as possible. The people who just invested and never pulled out a cent, they're not the ones at any risk. There's no issue with regards. The only issue might be at what value the Bitcoin's going to be valued at. And that's on the date, whether it's going to be the date of investment or the date of liquidation. But otherwise, it makes no difference to them. The problem is going to come with the people who've withdrawn, and whether they've made a profit or whether they haven't. And that's going to be the issue, because there's going to be such a fine line about who could constitute a net winner and a net loser at any given stage. And that's where the problem is going to come, is it's not even the case of the pure net winners, where it's people who put in, let's call it 2 Bitcoin and walked out with 5 Bitcoin. It's not even about that anymore. Now it's the people who've put in 2 Bitcoin, pulled out half a Bitcoin, should have reinvested then another full Bitcoin, are still stuck with saying, but because of, depending on what the fluctuating amount is when the investment was pulled out, that may be the overall affecting value. So if you pulled it out at a higher value, even if it's not as high as what it was sold at on liquidation, you can end up paying back that portion at what you actually profited from. And on a fluctuating hedge bet, that could actually be quite a big difference, and that might go ahead and make and wipe out people completely on that basis.
Okay. Yolanda, anything else there?
Okay, so I have a person who said, I have only deposited, didn't withdraw anything. So why should I oppose the action? It's not affecting me.
I think if I look at it from the people who have only deposited, I would say you still need to oppose the action. And the reason is because the way it is structured at the moment overcomplicates the whole situation and delays payment. And it's going into a situation where it's almost unmanageable. There's a much simpler way that it can be done, and there is a much better manageable way to do it. So if I'm sitting there with a massive deposit, I would seriously consider challenging this, because one of the things that they've done, and this is something that is still an argument, they have declared the Bitcoin an intangible asset. And it's not an intangible asset, it is a tangible asset. But in the court papers, they declare it an intangible asset. Now, the moment you start doing that, it makes the whole thing fluffy. And it's not a fluffy thing. It is just as much a currency as what a fiat currency is. And it is used worldwide with tangible value. Now, that argument has not been properly addressed yet. So that is one of the reasons, if I was an investor, I wanted my money back, I would get that court thing challenged and get it resolved as soon as possible. Because right now what's happening, this current thing is really making it complicated. And what will happen is, just imagine you've got, it's a really simple thing. You can sit there, you can say, the guys put in so many Bitcoin, they took out so many Bitcoin. This is what the net result of the Bitcoin value is that they have in the investment. Easy, the thing is settled. When you start doing what they're doing at the moment, these things are going to turn into all sorts of court cases and arguments, which are going to be all over the place. And there's no consistency. And that's just going to create a massive amount of money and time expense trying to resolve all these individual things. Have I more or less discussed that correctly, Ian? Would you say that I'm reasonably accurate in that?
You are pretty accurate. At the end of the day, it's only going to get worse and more complicated. New formulas and new calculations and new aspersions on what a Bitcoin is and isn't. You're spot on that one, Chris. And you know what? Also, one must take a look is when you start fidgeting around with what the value should or shouldn't be. And you're dealing with a flexible type of a currency, is if you bought something in 2018 and you invested when it first began at a lower amount, and even if you haven't withdrawn anything, then realistically it's been liquidated at a higher amount. If you bought it at 500 Rand a Bitcoin and it was liquidated at 5,000 Rand per Bitcoin, and I'm using that as a number, why on earth, even if you haven't withdrawn anything, must you still get paid at 500 Rand a Bitcoin when the liquidators themselves cashed it out at 5,000 Rand a Bitcoin?
Exactly. That's exactly my point. They are turning a tangible asset into an intangible asset and creating a massive issue about these things, which is absolutely unnecessary. That's just my. Sorry.
It's tantamount to imagine going and buying a share or a unit trust, and this is saying that everybody can go ahead and associate it with. But you buy a share in a company for 1 Rand, that company booms, and suddenly it becomes 100 Rand a share, and irrespective, and then they say, well, we'll pay you back. We don't have to pay you a dividend based on what the share price is. We'll pay you a dividend based on what you invested. So if you bought it at 1 Rand a share, we'll base our dividend on that. Those people would be the first ones hauled off to jail. Yeah. And now you're getting the liquidators saying, well, this is basically the way on how we can in actual fact look at calculating it. So it's completely inequitable.
Yeah. Yolanda, I think we've thrashed that a little bit.
Yes, I just want to add what you need to take into consideration, and that is why I would suggest to support the action is the longer it's been dragged out because people are being subpoenaed and the net losers and net winners are being mixed up, the longer court cases runs, the more money will be depleted, so there will be less available to be distributed amongst the investors.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 And the only people who are winning in this are the liquidators who are running us all to court and back. Crazy. Okay, any other questions there that we need to deal with on this technical basis? Okay, so in summary, what we will do is we will put out a questionnaire to everybody. We will put a structure together on how and what we need to be able to oppose this action. And then we will do a presentation of what our plan is, and then you guys can all decide what you want to do. We can't at the moment fund it with the funding that we've got, that any accountant can come and have a look at our books. We don't have any problems with that. It's all above board. But currently we are going to have to ask you guys to pitch in if you can, or if you're interested or not interested, but the group as such, we should try and get this properly funded and get the proper legal backing to be able to take opposition to this current court case. I really think it's absolutely critically necessary. Okay. All right. Now, just to move on from that, Ian, any more comments you would like to add to that at the moment? I want to step away from this.
Nothing more on that one, Chris.
Okay. I want to step away from this and just explain a little bit of what's been happening to some of our investors. We've had investors that have been, who have had the sheriff visit them, making claims against them for funds they withdraw. So they are already working or acting on this provisional order that they've got. They're already empowering that, and they've sent the sheriff out to certain people who have had funds, who have taken funds out, and those things need to be addressed and opposed. And what we've got, so we've got a process which we've put in place, which because we know and have all the documentation of the clients and the client's information, and we're working closely with Ian Ellis, we put the documentation together and prepare your documents to be submitted to Solicitor Ian Ellis. That helps us. We can then also incorporate the status of your claim and everything else, and then it reduces the amount of administration that needs to be done in the process of filing the opposition. So we have created a place where if anybody needs legal assistance, and on that last email that we sent out earlier today, we actually put in a link for that. We'll send out another email in the next day or two, telling you where you can go for this page for the legal assistance. But if you go to our website, okay, so on the website, if you go under services, I hope you can see that. If you go under services, there is legal assistance. If you don't know what's happening or where you are and whether that is necessary, legal assistance will take you to this page, and it has an explanation on there what's happening, and then we ask you some questions down here. You can answer the questions and everything, and then when you submit, there is a payment link as well, and we will react to this and get back to you to help you set up whatever documentation you need, and this will also include the first filing papers as well for your case, okay, to protect you and to think. Any questions on that, Yolanda? Have I made that clear? Is that more or less right? Yolanda?
It's fine. I'm on mute. Sorry.
You're good, yeah. Okay, so that's on legal assistance. Then the other thing is here you've got one-on-one support. Now, we've found that a lot of people have problems submitting their documentation or getting it filed, and they need us to help them set their stuff up to get their claims resolved. And on the one-on-one support here in our services, you can then go and apply for one-on-one support where you get direct support from us. And we set up everything for you on the COG system, and we will then subsequently, if you can't do it yourself, you're having problems, then we can get that all resolved. Okay, is there any questions around these two topics at the moment? So right now you can call us and say, listen, this has happened to me. I've got a problem. I need help. And then we can work out how to get you to get the help you need for your individual case. And we're doing that for quite a number of people because a lot of these things have come up at the moment. And we're helping people on an individual basis. I really, really want to stress this to everybody. You get a subpoena, you get a sheriff visit you, anything like that, please, you've got to talk to us, guys. It's really important. It's not a joke at the moment. We've got to react to these things, and we've got to do something. We've got to try and do as much as we can to keep you all safe from what the liquidators are trying to do at the moment. Questions? Anton, do you want to pop in on anything specific that we need to address at this stage?
Evening, Chris. I hope things are well. Yes, I just want everyone to understand this is a very, very critical thing that we're sitting with here. At this stage, it doesn't matter if you're a net loser or a net winner, or you're angry at this person or that person, or whatever the case might be. We all need to stand together. The liquidators are sharks. And like I say, if you're a net winner, you're going to lose. If you're a net loser, they're going to come after you. It's not the time for pointing fingers at this stage. We all need to stand together.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely necessary. And we've got to try to protect ourselves from these people. They are doing, I mean, the right thing for them to have done would have been to sit back and just to wait for the court case to come out with, because everybody had an opportunity and that court case is still ongoing. And now they come out with something else, which in the end is just the way that whole order is written. It's just a rip-off for everybody. There's no doubt about it. It's just going to rip off everybody who's involved in this MTI thing at the moment. And Anton, absolutely, I agree with you. We need to stand together and find a way to challenge these guys on that order. Okay, guys. Yolanda, do you want to? Are there any questions, Lucille? Have you got any questions that need to be have you got anything else, Anton? Have you got anything specific that's not clear at this stage of the game?
No, thanks. I'm happy.
Okay, I've had one of your friends call me yesterday, and we're in the negotiation with them about the rates, the number of Bitcoin that the liquidators have agreed. And we're only 1 Bitcoin out on 5 Bitcoin, which is pretty good. But I think what's happened is the guy included the investment amount that he made out of the the bogus information that was given by MTI in the thing. So we're just busy analyzing that at the moment. Okay.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, sure. Go, Anton. Yes.
This email that the liquidators are sending to everyone with their calculations, and at the bottom they need to accept it or reply or something. What do you guys suggest investors do with that email? Ignore it, or
I would suggest that at this stage of the game that we put it across to Solicitor Ian Ellis and Advocate Hendrik van Staden, the format of that, and ask them to give us an opinion on it. I am sure they would give us an opinion as to what to do with that. That would be my suggestion.
Just a moment. Remember that is an email we are sending out in terms of information we receive from the liquidators. So
no, it might be something else, Yolanda. You don't know what it is.
Okay.
It's a complete different email from the liquidators, from their attorneys. That's sent out with your calculations, your amount that you can claim, and at the bottom it says you can claim. A lot of investors receive that email. And I just tell everybody, hold on, don't do anything. Let's wait.
Yeah, I would suggest that I haven't been given one of those emails, to be honest with you. But
if you send me your email address privately, I'll send you the one I received. You can have a look.
Okay, yeah, I can tell everybody my email address is chris@getacquid, chris@getacquid.com. That's the best email to send me that information. I would suggest what we do is let's address it. We can put a pro forma of that email up, and I'll ask Solicitor Ian Ellis and Advocate Hendrik van Staden just to give us an opinion on that. They can give us a legal opinion as to what we should do with that. I think that's what we need to do in the light of what we've got with all the actions going on at the moment. Okay. All right, so Yolanda, anything else? Or Lucille, you guys got anything else? Anton, is that okay like that? Do you agree with that?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. All right, guys. Lucille, anything on your side? Yolanda? Okay. But at this stage of the game, we've got a really serious court action that needs to be addressed. And we have to get solicitors there. We have to get advocates there. The last time around, it cost nearly 130,000 Rand for everybody and everything that had to be done. And honestly, guys, I don't even want to tell you how much Anton has expended to get this as far as it is, because he's the one who started this action in the original liquidation as well. And he's the one that brought this bogus company down at the beginning. And I don't even want to tell you how much that cost. And for people to say, well, I'm actually dying because I'm putting in, look, we're not saying to you that this is going to be resolved quickly. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. But if we aren't there, then you're going to lose everything and you might be liquidated in the process. Okay, that you've heard that from Solicitor Ian Ellis, and these guys are playing games with this. It's very clear what they're trying to do with this second provisional order that they went for. And now we have to go back to court and to try to try to stop this provisional order. So all of these things are a necessity. Okay. All right. Is there anything else from anybody at this stage? Anything in the questions, Yolanda, that we need to deal with?
What about the people who have opened multiple accounts?
You mean people who opened up? It depends on whether they withdrew or not. The problem that you've got is in the set of papers that have now in this provisional order, if you were actually encouraged by MTI to open your own account and then open a number of accounts below you with different names. And then you would get 10% of those values paid back to you. Now, if at the same time you had growth on those accounts and you might have withdrawn some Bitcoin, you're now in a position where you can't claim unless you've actually, you can't claim unless you've actually unless you actually repay all the money you withdrew. And then you might repay the money you withdrew at a rand for rand value, but the total pot that they are going to pay out is not going to equate to the sum that is your claim. That's also what this provisional order does to you. Maybe I can just explain that for a moment. So you're sitting there, you have invested 5 Bitcoin. During the time period that you might have invested those 5 Bitcoin, as Ian said, at 100 Rand per Bitcoin when you originally bought them. Then you opened up multiple accounts and a whole lot of friends and you helped everybody, and everybody thought they were making money because MTI was lying to everybody about the proceeds. And then you went and you withdrew some of those funds. Now you've become a net winner and you might still be an overall loser, but you've withdrawn funds. Now you have to replace those funds, but when they do the final calculation, your values might not be realized in the pot. So it really becomes a horrible, horrible situation for a lot of people. Ian, are you still with us? I see you here. Have I got that right? Ian?
Yeah, you do, Chris.
Okay.
It is exactly what you said.
Okay. All right. Guys, I think, shall we call it a day? Yolanda, unless you've got something else?
One question that is very interesting. It says, why was GetAquit not represented in this court case?
Because we weren't notified. As were all the investors should have been notified.
They went behind our back.
They went behind our back.
And with a different court than the original that we are busy with.
That's exactly right, Anton. They went behind our back.
I don't think that people realize this. Remember now with the claiming, and you opened for your son and you opened for your mother-in-law or your mother. Your mother might be 64 years old. She doesn't even know how to switch on the computer, but you assisted her, opened an MTI account, invested it for her. At the end of the day, they're not going to come to you that opened the account. They're going to go after her to get the money.
We have to oppose the court case. So we have to decide what our position is. We've got to read all the papers, and then we've got to submit what is the correct, what our opinion, our solicitors and our advocates have to then submit the proper documentation. If an individual wants to do this, he's looking at around about 120,000 Rand for that. Am I right, Ian? Have I got this more or less correct?
Give or take.
Give or take.
We're in that ballpark.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Yolanda, Lucille, anything else? Shall I wrap it up? Come on, guys. Tell me. Are we done? Yep. Ian, have you got any last words of wisdom for us?
No, I don't. At the end of the day, if people want to try and get their money back, at the end of the day, then they've got to actually club together and fight. Individuals can't take this on, but you can as a group. So just think before you go ahead and just start listening to all the negativity, that it's going to take something to get something, and they're not simply just going to hand you a blank check, especially in the current circumstances. So It's people's choices, but if they want, they can't complain afterwards. It's like you can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. Same thing. You're not going to get anywhere in the litigation if you don't get involved and you don't put your money in your pockets.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, Ian. Thank you so much for your participation tonight. Anton, any last words here?
No, thank you. Like
Okay,
Ian
thanks.
said,
Thank you. Thank you very much for your participation. Lucille, any last words? Are you good? Okay. We'll say goodnight to Victor for us tonight. Yolanda, any last words on your side?
No.
All right. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for your participation. And we'll get this video edited and put up in the next couple of days. I'll try and get it to you by Monday at the latest. And in the meantime, we'll discuss what we need to do, and I will send out information regarding the action we propose to do on this case, on this interim order. Okay. If anybody's got any questions, please, guys, if you need to interact with us, if you've got points you want to raise as far as the legal action is concerned, please just go there and let's discuss things from there. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night. And God bless you all. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.